The Goonies has captivated audiences since its release in 1985. It is the classic adventure film about a group of misfit kids who discover a treasure map and embark on a dangerous quest to find hidden pirate gold and save their home. Along the way, they encounter a family of criminals and face a series of thrilling challenges. Its blend of humor, adventure, and youthful charm made The Goonies an instant classic. As The Goonies legends grew with new generations, more and more began to yearn for a sequel. Now, almost 40 years later, The Goonies are coming back, and the announcement has many people wondering, why now?
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
The reason The Goonies is so beloved is that it captures the excitement and imagination of kids in a way that few films had before. At its core, it's a story about friendship, bravery, and the thrill of discovery. We loved it because it mirrored our own dreams of embarking on daring quests, outsmarting adults, and finding treasure, all while surrounded by your closest friends. The Goonies were relatable, with each having a unique personality, yet none feeling overly polished or unrealistic. This made the adventure feel real, as any group of kids can find themselves in a similar situation. Fans have wanted more Goonies adventures for a long time, and according to the news, they're getting one now. A sequel to The Goonies has been allegedly greenlit, with plans for the original cast to return. Josh Brolin, Sean Astin, Corey Feldman, and Ki-Hoo Kwan are all expected to reprise their roles, while the production is set to begin development in 2025, aiming for a release in 2026 or as late as 2027. The sequel aims to recapture the spirit of the original, balancing nostalgia with fresh elements for a modern audience. While some will be thrilled about the reunion of the Goonies, others remain cautious, concerned about whether the sequel can live up to the first film's legacy. A Goonies sequel faces an uphill battle due to several significant factors. First and foremost, it's been nearly 40 years since the original film. The passage of time creates a disconnect between the audiences and the characters, as the original cast members are now middle-aged. Additionally, Richard Donner, the director who captured the magic of the original, has passed away, leaving the project without its guiding force. A new director would have to replicate Donner's unique blend of adventure, humor, and heart, which is a near impossible task. The charm of The Goonies was not just its story, but in the perfect timing of its cast and their age. The kids were relatable because they were young, mischievous, and full of childhood wonder, just like all of us, and you can't really recapture that as an adult. Making a Goonies sequel would ultimately undermine the very things that made the original the original. However, this isn't the first attempt at a Goonies sequel. Over the years, numerous attempts were made to produce a follow-up, particularly in the late 80s and 90s, but despite the enthusiasm and the success of the original, a sequel never materialized. Following the success of the first film, there was an immediate discussion about the sequel. Director Richard Donner and producer Steven Spielberg were reportedly interested in continuing the story. The concept for The Goonies 2 would have seen the original cast return for another thrilling adventure, but finding a compelling storyline proved to be more difficult than expected. According to Donner, the magic of the original film was hard to replicate, and despite a few brainstorming sessions, no clear direction emerged. Several ideas were floated around during the period, including another treasure hunt or a new threat to Astoria, Oregon, where the story takes place. However, creative differences between the filmmakers, as well as logistical challenges in reuniting the cast, meant that the project struggled to gain traction. Sadly, by the late 1980s, enthusiasm for an immediate sequel had waned, and the idea was placed on the back burner. In the mid-90s, interest in a sequel resurfaced. This time, the concept centered around the original Goonies, now adults, who would guide a new generation of treasure hunters, potentially their own children, on a similar adventure. This direction reflected the aging of the original cast, and it seemed like a natural evolution of the story. Sean Astin and Corey Feldman were vocal proponents of a sequel during this time, and even mentioned it in interviews, hoping that the project would come to life. Again, despite this renewed interest, logistical hurdles remained. Many of the original cast members had moved into different careers. Jeff Cohen, known for his role as Chunk, had become a lawyer and was no longer acting. At the time, Ki-Hoo Kwan, who played Data, had largely stepped away from acting as well. Reassembling the group proved challenging, and without a clear script or the full support of the original cast, the project once again stalled. Recognizing the difficulty of producing a live-action sequel, another idea emerged. An animated series, this concept would have allowed for the expansion of the Goonies universe without requiring the original actors to return. The animation route offered flexibility in storytelling, and it seemed like a logical way to keep the spirit of the Goonies alive. However, this idea never fully took off. While it held potential, it never really progressed beyond the discussion stage, and the franchise remained dormant. While a sequel never materialized, fans did technically get one in the form of the Goonies 2 video game on the NES. The game, which featured Mikey on a quest to save his friends from the Fratellis, functioned as an unofficial sequel. However, the game was met with mixed reviews from fans due to its departure from the film's tone and plot. The game's focus on a mermaid rescue mission rather than treasure hunt fell out of place for many, and the gameplay mechanics were seen as repetitive and challenging. Additionally, the game's graphics and sound design were considered outdated for its time, further contributing to its negative reception. Though it wasn't considered part of the movie's canon, the game allowed fans to revisit the world of the Goonies one more time. Now the real question is, should it stay this way? The truth is, we don't need more Goonies movies because spiritually, they never stopped making the Goonies. For the modern generation, Stranger Things has filled the void left by the Goonies, offering a similar blend of kid-led adventures, mystery, and supernatural thrills. Like the Goonies, Stranger Things captures the sense of camaraderie and adventure, drawing on 80s nostalgia to create a world where kids face incredible odds, armed only with their wit and determination. The show's young protagonists, much like Mikey and the rest of the Goonies, are thrust into an extraordinary situation where they must rely on each other to survive. The setting, tone, and even casting of Stranger Things all pay homage to the beloved 1985 film, offering a spiritual successor that taps into the same sense of wonder and excitement that originally captured audiences. For a generation that may have not grown up with the Goonies, Stranger Things provided the same adventure and coming-of-age experience, making a new Goonies film less necessary. Meanwhile, for fans of the original Goonies, the new It movies have filled in the same gap. It offers a more adult take on the kid-led adventure, with the Losers Club mirroring the dynamic of the Goonies crew, ordinary kids coming together to face extraordinary dangers. While It is darker and more horror-driven, it still focuses on the themes of friendship, bravery, and resilience of youth. The characters, much like the Goonies, feel authentic, flawed, and relatable, which makes the stakes of the journey even more gripping for the audience. Many fans of the Goonies who have grown up now find themselves drawn to the emotional depths and darker tones of It, feeling a sense of nostalgia and camaraderie for the kid-led adventures, but with a more mature edge. Both Stranger Things and It prove that the formula of the Goonies is timeless, which is why so many kid-led adventure films are still compared to the Goonies. These modern adaptations satisfy our cravings for the adventure, mystery, and heart that the Goonies embodied. There is potential for the Goonies 2 to be a successful legacy sequel, much like Top Gun Maverick, Beetlejuice 2, and Beverly Hills Cop 4. These films thrived by tapping into 80s nostalgia and bringing back the beloved characters we all loved with new, fresh elements. Top Gun Maverick in particular resonated with audiences and critics for its blend of nostalgia and modern storytelling, earning praise and honoring the original while offering a meaning continuation to its story. Similarly, Beetlejuice 2 has garnered excitement for reuniting the original cast, while films like Beverly Hills Cop Axel F rely on their iconic leads to draw in both old and new viewers. The success of these legacy sequels lies in their ability to respect the past while adapting to present-day filmmaking, suggesting that with the right balance, The Goonies 2 could work by harnessing the charm of the 80s and bringing back the original cast for a new generation. However, the risk of failure is real as well. Legacy films like The Matrix 4, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and Star Wars all hurt their respective franchises by alienating the core fans. These films were criticized for undermining the legacy of beloved characters, often deconstructing them in ways that turned their audiences against the franchise. The Goonies 2 would probably deconstruct the original film's themes, showing the once adventurous kids as tired adults struggling with their own issues, and this would backfire massively. Audiences don't want films that remind them of the passage of time or make them feel old. We all want films that evoke the nostalgia and excitement of youth. Revisiting the Goonies as adults with grown-up problems would destroy the escapism and the joy that we all associate with the film. Instead of sparking the same sense of wonder, it would leave audiences feeling melancholic, as it would highlight how much time has passed rather than rekindling the youthful spirit. The Goonies worked because it made older people feel young and younger people feel old, and a sequel would destroy that magic. Can it embrace the adventurous spirit of the first film and evoke the same sense of wonder, or will it feel like an unnecessary hollow cash grab? There is a chance that it could be a nostalgic hit if it stays true to what made the Goonies so beloved in the first place, but there's also the danger they could fail by reminding fans just how old they are. Whether the Goonies 2 succeeds, falters, or even gets made will depend on how it can balance the past and the present and recapture the magic that made the original a timeless classic. Goonies never say die, and even without a sequel, the Goonies are good enough to live on forever. So folks, tell me what you think down in the comments below. One thing I wanted to add is, There is one man who could capture the tone of Richard Donner, but it probably wouldn't go over well with a lot of people. Who is that man? Well, he's the man that Richard Donner trained to direct. And this man went on to direct very successful films, make a lot of money in the process, but he's alienated himself with a lot of people. That man is Mel Gibson. Yes, folks, if they were going to make a Goonies sequel, Mel Gibson is the only person who could get it right. Not because he's a fan of the Goonies, and you don't need to be a fan of the Goonies to get it right. You need to be the person who can capture the tone the best. And while Richard Donner is no longer with us, he did train Mel Gibson, and I'm sure Mel Gibson could tap into what made Richard Donner, and at least give you the closest thing possible to a Goonies film. But either way, I don't want one. So folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more. Check out all of our content, including a video on why they shouldn't make a sequel to Spaceballs. Just because there have been 2 or 3 good legacy sequels doesn't mean I need more films in the same universe. Do I really want to know what Dark Helmet is up to? Not really. Do I really want to know what Mikey Mouth and Data are up to? Not particularly. They're just kids. They grow up, they go on and do mundane things. But let's keep the magic alive and keep the Goonies young forever. So folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more. In the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.